Ever since the day that you went away, you've been sending flowers, flowers to me, flowers today, flowers today. Instead of sending flowers, come back to me and hold me in your arms again.
Hey guys, so I'm going to be doing the controversial parenting tag today. I know that this was really old. This is old, like a long time ago YouTube, but as I've said before, I wasn't a YouTuber back then, and I really wanted to do this tag because I think it's really interesting, especially for mom YouTubers, to know where people stand on this, if that's interesting to you. It's interesting to me. I know that I subscribed to a lot of my mom YouTubers specifically based on their answers for this tag. So I think that's interesting, and if you'd like to know my opinion on these issues, then stick around. First one, pro-life versus pro-choice. I am pro-choice. I'm 100% pro-choice. I don't think that it's appropriate to use abortion as a form of birth control. And I know that a lot of other YouTubers have said that too. But yeah, I personally don't think that you should be doing that. I think that if you have the means to use protection, that you definitely should, because there are a lot of free services for even girls who are under the age of 18, such as Planned Parenthood, to do reproductively. So I really feel like there's no excuse for you to not be using protection if you feel like you are ready to be having sex. But if the situation happens, however it happened, I'm not going to sit here and tell a woman what she should and shouldn't do with her body. I think that's totally wrong. I know that a lot of people feel like they would really only support abortion if it's in the case of like rape or some other kind of sexual assault or incest or anything like that. Personally, the way that I look at it is it's none of my business to ask you why it is that you're getting an abortion. It's none of my business to sit here and berate you about why it is that you're getting an abortion. If you feel like getting an abortion is the right thing for you to do, it is your life, it is your body, and I think that that is the end of the discussion, honestly. So, next, baby wearing. I don't even know why this is controversial. Honestly, I love baby wearing. I think it's great. I did it with my daughter for a while. I had a baby Bjorn, and it was awesome. She didn't love it. She liked being faced out, and I didn't have a baby carrier that faced both ways. It was just supposed to face in. So I love it. I love it when moms do it. I think it's a great way to help, especially if you have multiple kids and you have a baby that constantly wants to be held but you need your hands. I think that's great. I love it when dads do it. I think that's wonderful. Yeah, I love baby wearing. Next one, circumcision. I know why this one's controversial. I am against circumcision, honestly. I don't have a son, but if I do have a son, he will not be getting circumcised. There's no benefit to it, honestly. There's no medical need for it, and I can do a whole video on why I feel that circumcision is unnecessary or anything like that, if that's interesting for you guys. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, just all I can say about it is do your research, because if you're going off of old wives' tales or what your parents said or, you know, anything else, a lot of the myths that I have heard can be debunked if you just do the research on it. Okay, next, adoption. I'm 100% for adoption both ways, people adopting and people giving their children up for adoption. I think that both of those are wonderful. If I were given the choice between abortion and adoption, I would 100% vote for adoption. I mean, if you have that kind of mental capacity where you could handle an adoption, I definitely think that you should consider that before you consider abortion. But if you, I mean, I understand that a lot of women just can't. I know that putting your child up for adoption is very, very difficult. I can't even imagine the amount of strength and selflessness that you would have to endure to put your child up for adoption. I think that those women are incredibly strong. They are just incredibly selfless, and a level of selflessness that I can't even fathom, honestly. And I think that those women should be awarded or given some kind of recognition more than they are. Okay, next one, baby piercing. This is another controversial one for me specifically. I am so against baby piercing. I mean, I know that maybe people will think that I'm exaggerating, but I think it's ridiculous. I mean, I don't think it looks cute. I don't think that baby girls or baby boys with piercings are cute. And at that point, I feel like you're just completely selfish. You are putting your child through pain 100% for you. Those piercings aren't doing anything for your baby. Your 6-month-old baby doesn't even know it's there. They could care less. And I know that some people are like, oh, you know, they barely even feel it. Well, who cares? People say the same thing about circumcision. But the fact of the matter is, it's a selfish act performed for the parent. That's how I associate the two, and that is why I feel the same way. I'm not saying that the pain level is the same. I'm not saying that they're both on the same level. I'm saying both acts are performed for the parent selfishly, inflicting pain on the child unnecessarily. Next, breast milk versus formula. I have very little opinion. And by that I mean I don't think that anybody should be chastised for giving one to another. I mean, if you're going to go medically, obviously, breast is best. I breastfed my child because I could and because I wanted to. There are a lot of working mothers out there who can't breastfeed. There are a lot of mothers out there who have multiple children who it's just too overwhelming. There are a lot of mothers out there with twins and other children, or just twins, who find it way too overwhelming to breastfeed, and so they use formula, and I think that that's wonderful. I think that being able to have formula is a wonderful thing for people in this situation. But I also don't think that women who are perfectly capable of breastfeeding and choose to formula feed are doing their child a disservice. They're not harming their child in any way. They're not selfish, in my opinion. They're just doing what they think is best. And, you know, for whatever reason that is their decision. They're the mother, and it has been proven by research that formula-fed babies are just as healthy as breastfed babies. And I think that it's sad that some women feel really uncomfortable about their decisions, that they can't even share them because of such judgmental issues like we have. And I think that if you formula feed your child, you are just as great of a mother as somebody who's breastfeeding their child. There is no difference in my eyes. I think that all mothers are freaking fantastic, and we're all just doing the best that we can. Next, spanking. This is gonna be a hard one to explain. I'm against spanking, but I have spanked my child, and I'll explain. There are times when I will sometimes smack her on the butt. There is a huge, and I want everybody who's watching this to understand that there is a huge difference between spanking your child and beating your child. I do not beat my child. It is at best one smack on the butt with, I would say, a third of my full force. There is no way in hell anybody who saw me spank my child would think that I was beating my child, unless you were 100% ignorant and just completely against spanking and just wanted to make me seem like I was beating my child. It is only when there have been a couple of times where my daughter has been just screaming her head off, screaming, yelling, throwing a tantrum, fighting against me, where I have picked her up and smacked her on the butt to get her attention. And I think that that is perfectly fine, where when you're considering other parents who will slap their kid across the face to get their attention. And this was in situations where I couldn't leave the room, situations where I didn't have anybody else to come and watch my child and calm her down. I am by myself, and I know that I haven't 100% explained that, but I am a single mother. I am by myself almost 100%. No, but when I have my daughter, I'm by myself 100% of the time. John does not discipline my daughter. Nobody else disciplines my daughter. It is me and my daughter, and sometimes when I am by myself and I don't have that help of somebody else, I get very overwhelmed. And even though I have gotten very overwhelmed, never ever in my life have I hurt my child in a way that is dangerous. I have never beat my child. I've never slapped my child in the face. I have never done anything else that could possibly be considered as child abuse. I have merely smacked her on the butt to stop her from screaming. And that is it. And I don't like spanking. It makes me feel like the worst possible person in the world. In the pit of my stomach, I feel like I have failed as a mother, because I've had to resort to spanking, and I'm getting emotional. But like I explained, I am by myself, and I don't have anybody here with me to calm my child down when I'm overwhelmed. So the times that I've had to do that, I haven't felt proud of myself, and I haven't felt great, but I have done them out of necessity because I was out of options. I don't condone spanking. I don't spank my child when she's just frustrating me. I don't spank my child just out of the blue. I don't spank my child in lieu of other disciplines. I will 100% go through every single different discipline that I've learned, that I have heard of, that I have found, before I will resort to spanking, and I haven't had to do that in a long time. And so I would certainly hope that as fellow mothers, or anybody else who's watching this right now, that you don't judge me incredibly hard, because this is not something that I want to do. This is not the kind of parent that I want to be. And I think that's all I'm going to say about it. Next, co-sleeping. I am totally for co-sleeping. I think it's great for people who can do it. I know that there are some families with multiple kids, and sometimes you can, or like I know that sometimes people try to do it with twins, but it's too hard. I think co-sleeping is great. I know that the controversy behind it is, you know, oh God, what if you roll over and smash your baby? Or I actually haven't done a lot of research on that. I don't actually know how often that occurs, but I think that if there was enough occurrences of that, it wouldn't still be promoted by moms or pediatricians or anything like that. As for me, I am an extremely light sleeper when it comes to my child. Super, super light sleeper, even to this day. I can hear my kid and I'm awake, and when I'm dead asleep here, and I can hear her anytime she needs me or calls or comes in, I can hear her. So when she was a baby and I would co-sleep with her, even when we were in the tiny hospital bed, like, I mean, I'm sure I didn't get that much sleep, but I was 100% aware of her the whole time. So I know myself, and I know how I am when I'm asleep, and I know my body. So for me, I felt perfectly comfortable co-sleeping. Next, home versus public versus private versus charter schools. Let's see. I haven't done a lot of research on a lot of that. Obviously, I know the issues with public school. My daughter goes to public school. That's just what works for us. Private schools, I've been to private school. Honestly, if you're trying to put your kid in a private school to lower the bullying, I would think again, because as somebody who's personally experienced it, it's not less. In fact, it may be more, depending on the private school. I was bullied way more in the private school that I went to than I was at the public school that I was in previously. So, you know, every school, every type of schooling has its own challenges and issues that you would have to overcome. The public school system, I know because I'm trying to get into it, isn't great. There's a lot of things that they should improve upon. As far as education wise, private schools, they take their education a little bit more seriously. Teachers take their jobs a little bit more seriously. It's just the kids that you really have to worry about. Charter schools, I don't have any experience with, so I couldn't speak on that. I know that Lily's dad went to a charter school, and he thought that it was great. He was advanced, so it was easier for him in the classes to be challenged. So, but like I said, I don't have experience on that, so I don't feel comfortable talking on that. Homeschooling, homeschooling would of course be the best option. You have, you know, full reign on what you teach your child, although that, depending on the parents, can go a separate way. I know a lot of religious parents who have homeschooled their children and have left out anything that doesn't go along with their religious agenda, and that's not great, because what you should be focusing on is what's going to help your child thrive in the real world, and that's not religion. You know, it's education. So, I mean, it's really, I mean, honestly, whatever you choose to do, just make sure that you're doing it the right way, the appropriate way, and what's going to help your child most in their future. Vaccinations. And I'm nervous smiling because this is the most controversial thing on this list, in my opinion. Let's see. Yeah. In my opinion, I am 100% for vaccines, and I know that they are extremely important for your children. And I'm just going to get this out of the way because I don't want to say it out of anger later in my rant, but I think that if you don't vaccinate your children, you are doing a great disservice to your child and to other children that you subject your children to. And I think that a lot of parents would change their mind about vaccinations if they just did the appropriate type of research, not going on the internet and finding, you know, forums with a lot of other parents who are just totally against vaccinations or whatever. There is no concrete evidence that vaccinations cause autism, that was never proven. And I will link as many articles in the description as I can find that helped me with my research when I was looking at this, when I was trying to have conversations with friends or family members about vaccinations. But the fact of the matter is, if you know what a vaccination is, you will understand why a vaccination is so important. It is not the entire strain of a disease. That is not what you are putting in your child. You are putting a very small, dead amount of it so that your body can react and fight it off appropriately. And so that if your child becomes encountered with that disease or with that virus later on in its life, your child's body will know exactly how to fight it off because it's done it before. That is why we vaccinate our children. That is why there are so many cases of children who are getting infected with these diseases that haven't been an issue for decades or centuries, and kids are getting infected with these and their bodies don't know how to fight it off, and they're bringing it back to other children whose parents also aren't vaccinating them, who don't know how to fight it off, or parents who haven't been able to vaccinate their children yet because they're too young for a specific vaccination and they can't fight it off, and kids are dying. It's not a huge issue obviously right now, but it's a big enough of an issue that it has been in news reports. And I know I'm going to get so much hate for this, but I don't care, because nothing that you can tell me is going to stop me from vaccinating my child. Nothing that you can tell me is going to stop me from protecting my child against anything. And I have one final thing to say about this. I would 100% rather have a child who I vaccinated who now has autism than not vaccinate my child and my child be encountered with something that its body can't fight off, and now I don't have a child. Next, medicating children. I watched a couple of these videos a while ago, and I think what they're trying to say is putting your child like on ADHD medication, or any kind of medication like that. I haven't done enough research on that personally because it's not something that has personally affected my child. So I haven't really done a lot of research on it, but my opinion on it personally is that I think that you should consider a child's age. And actually I have an experience with this, not personally me, but my mom. I went to a Catholic kindergarten. I went to a Catholic school for kindergarten, and I was very hyper and very imaginative and very outgoing and very impulsive, and I was always going. I had a lot of energy, and to that, it made my kindergarten teacher think that I had ADHD, and my mom didn't think that I had ADHD, and so my teacher told her about mid-year that I needed to be put on ADHD medication because she couldn't handle me. And my mom refused, and she got letters from the school, from the superintendent, from everybody who had come into the classroom and observed me, and they all concluded that I had ADHD. And I was getting calls home because I was hyper, and because I couldn't sit still and I wasn't listening. My mom refused to put me on ADHD medication. So the end of the year came, and my school basically told her that if my mom didn't show that she was putting me on ADHD medication, that I was not going to be able to graduate at that school. So yeah, my mom wouldn't medicate me for ADHD because she didn't believe that I had ADHD. And as I got older, I obviously was able to control myself in classes, and I didn't have a problem. So obviously I didn't have ADHD. So I really think that, I mean, if the situation were similar with me, I would have at least gotten my daughter tested. But I think that you as the parent know your child. I think that if you think that your child is just a hyper child, you're the one that's with your child the majority of the time. You're the one that's been with your child, Jesus, since, you know, they were born until they went up to, and you didn't have a problem. And, you know, your kid may just be a little bit more hyper than the majority of the kids in that class. And, you know, it's easier for you to deal with your child because you will just have your child, and this teacher has like 16 other kids, you know. So yeah, having a bunch of kids that are perfectly fine, calm, can control themselves in a class, and then having a group of kids who maybe are a little bit more hyper than the other kids, I can understand how that can be difficult and challenging. But it doesn't mean that those kids need to be medicated just because it's harder for you to keep them under control than it is a different group of kids. So I think that as a parent, you know your child, you should trust your instincts, and you should also talk to your child's pediatrician and get some other advice, do some research. You are in charge of your child, and I don't think that it's appropriate for any healthcare provider or teacher or another parent or a family member or anything to tell you that you need to do something like putting your child on medication if you don't feel comfortable. Also, I do know that there are other homeopathic ways to deal with hyperactivity, not even just ADHD, but just hyper children. There are, you know, and I'm not always one for homeopathic ways because I think that, you know, science and medication is the best route to go for specific things. But there are different things that you can do to help your child if they have if they're particularly hyper. But also, that's just kids. Kids are hyper. Some kids are more hyper than others. But I don't think that just because your kid is difficult to deal with in a classroom, or it's difficult for a daycare center to deal with them, or a family member or a friend, that you should put them on medication. I don't think that that's right. Cloth diapers versus disposable diapers. Again, I have a very specific opinion, so I don't have a lot to say on this. I'm not going to say that I don't agree with cloth diapering, but I don't cloth diaper. If that's something that you want to do, that's totally great. And I think it's great for the environment, and I know that there's a lot of parents and research that have said that it's better for your child. Personally, I would rather buy those, like, what are they, Honest Company diapers that are supposed to help with diaper rash. Personally, my child used disposable diapers until she was potty trained, and I didn't see her have any significant, excruciatingly painful diaper rash. Sometimes she didn't even have diaper rash. Sometimes she was perfectly fine. So I don't see the need. Also, I don't have multiple children. But if I were to have kids again, I probably wouldn't cloth diaper. I'm also going to be a working mother, not just YouTube, and that's just not something that I can commit to. That's not something that I would ask like a daycare center or a nanny to do. I personally don't want to cloth diaper. I guess I'm trying to, you know, tactfully step around it, but I don't want to. I don't have a desire to clean a cloth diaper the way it is supposed to be cleaned. And cloth diapering is rather expensive. There's just a lot of reasons against cloth diapering, on top of the fact that I didn't want to have to clean the cloth diapers that way, that made me choose disposable diapers. And after choosing disposable diapers and having an experience with disposable diapers and knowing that it doesn't put your child in a great amount of pain or danger, or it's not as big of an issue as a lot of people try to make it out to be in defense of cloth diapering, I don't see anything wrong with disposable diapers. Cry it out method. I'm trying to think back. I do not like the cry it out method. I hate it. I hate hearing babies cry. I hate it. And I have such high anxiety, and I am such a crazy worrier that I would be terrified to let my child try to cry it out in their crib, thinking, you know, they're going to get so upset they're going to throw up. They're going to get so upset they're going to choke. They're going to get so upset that they're going to get lightheaded. I don't know. Sometimes when you cry really hard, you get lightheaded. I don't know if that happens to babies. But the fact of the matter is, I hate it. I cannot stand hearing babies cry. And as a parent, I know that you have to get used to that. And as a parent, I have. There was a time that when Lily was little and I was totally desensitized, like it did not make me feel bad at all to hear her cry when she would get in trouble. But, you know, like, she was not that hard to put to sleep when she was a baby, and she wasn't that hard to put to sleep when she was 1 and 2. I guess that was just easy for me. She would wake up in the middle of the night sometimes, you know, and stuff like that, but there was always a way that I could put her back to sleep. I wasn't so busy that she had to cry it out. I wasn't, you know, she wasn't staying up screaming for 2 or 3 hours, whatever. There was no reason why I had to practice the cry out method, and I didn't want to. I wouldn't with any of my future children. I wouldn't feel comfortable just sitting in the living room or in the hallway listening to my kids scream and cry, you know, especially at that age, at a very young age, when their vocabulary is limited and you don't know everything that's going on. I guess that's all I have to say. Anyway, that was the last one. That's the end of it. This one was kind of hard to get through. There were a lot of really touchy subjects in there, so I'm afraid I'm gonna lose the very few subscribers that I have. But anyway, guys, if you liked this, give it a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe, if you'd like to, this was actually really fun to make, and I hope that some of this information you really enjoyed. I hope it brought you into the kind of person that I am, the kind of parent that I am, my views, and if you found those interesting, I'd be really happy if you decided to stick around to hear more of my opinions. Topics will be linked down below just in case you want to do this tag, or whatever you want to do with it. They'll all be in the description box below. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye!